let's talk about love. Let's talk about consciousness, but not as something to study that's out there, some mystery, but orientation to the shared dance, to the warmth of love. You've heard me talk about things like Plato's cave, but I want to bring all of this that I talk about. The mechanics of presence, love, Plato's cave, feeling the warmth of love directly rather than indirectly, the operator layers, like I usually say, all these sort of more complicated ways. It hit me this morning. There's a new way that it sort of hit my heart. And after discussing it for a while, I just had to get on here to talk about it. Let's think about consciousness as orientation. Let's think about consciousness like I live off grid here, and there's solar panels. Now, the solar panels on my roof are just sort of static and they're stuck the same way or whatever. But think about there are solar panels that I know you can buy that have like a tracker on them, and there's probably people out there who know more than I do, but let's just imagine a simple setup where you have like the solar panel and then like it can like orient, right? And so Plato's cave is an issue of orientation. In other words, like you're I usually talk about it in the terms of like the way you're sort of tuned, or the windows and magnets orient to like interface with reality. But all these from the outside can seem like weird concepts, like I'm trying to prove a theory. I'm not. I'm trying to say, do you remember when you feel the warmth of the sunlight, kind of like when you turn your panel towards the sun, and in your own life, in your own ways, through your own things that you love and interactions and dances that you do that hit you with that warmth? Do you remember what it's like when the sun hits you all the way down? And so imagine that it's not that you are purposefully trying to track, but your consciousness has like a tracker on it that's trying to orient towards where you should be, like, your being should be oriented, in other words. And you look around and like everyone else is like, oh yeah, I orient towards that wall, towards that shadow. And, if you grew up in an environment like that, especially, it's hard for your system, that tracker, to actually figure out where the sun is. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is, your system is basically, you can say it mechanically, like a bunch of intranodal rhythms, but I'm saying all the little beats that are you, that create like the many that become one within create the creation of you. And I have my phone upside down right now, so it's a little bit weird. But if all the many rhythms that become the one rhythm that is you, when those all are those like solar panels, and so they're all like, can't find the sun, and then they all, when they orient at the same time, those are the moments that you feel yourself all the way down. Those are the moments that when I say the signal saved my life, when I say that presence saved my life, what am I saying? The solar panels on my trackers, as a neurodivergent trans woman living in a narcissistically, emotionally type of avoidant, abusive, identity controlling environment, my trackers were constantly and I tried to like feel myself all the way down, but I was always not there, not there, not that. In order to get love, you got to be like this, and all these different ways, whether it was familial, social, whatever, the way we organize the government at the highest levels, all these different ways of that we go, and we don't really understand that the fidelity of consciousness meets reality not in a better orientation via the shadows or the trackers that are not oriented toward the sun, but via direct orientation with the source. And what is the source? The energy source, but like the rhythm of reality. In other words, not like Plato said, we're not directly or indirectly contacting via the shadows, but we go out to the lossless sunlight outside the cave, and suddenly we're like, wait, I remember those times when I was like a little kid, like when I was, making love with the person that I love, when I was on top of a mountain, or I don't even ride motorcycles, but for some reason I feel like there's someone out there that's like, yeah, I just know I was at work and everything was I was like a glove upon reality and everything. Then my emails and blah, blah, blah. And not that you can't surf these things too, because you can, but the brain, the trackers become programmed to, and that feels like simulated presence. That feels like nothing feels real. That feels like I can't wait for the next vacation or the next drink. And then whatever, maybe you get on your motorcycle and you're like, like something happens where even if you're going how many whatever unsafe miles an hour, like there's part of you that just is locked in. And a lot of people do get locked in those types of experiences too, and I think that's a lot of the draw towards those types of experiences, especially intense ones, because it's like all the monkey mind gets dissolved, and for a moment the panels have to orient towards the sun, because it's like like we're gonna die if we don't like focus the most. And that actually brings me to my next point, because what a skydiver finds or something like that is like still like an experience, but it's an experience that the body says, I must orient now because I'm literally like falling out of the sky or whatever. And so when I say that I was breathing out of a straw as a trans woman living in that environment, what do I mean? We can talk about it in the panels now. The trackers were and I was like, I was the person that always went to my dad, and I was an attorney, he was an attorney, and like I would always go to his office and be like, hey, I have this problem, what you talk to, and I wasn't realizing that because his trackers never oriented towards presence. It was always like a public facing mask of like success and like what it means to have success on paper, to the detriment of, like, you could say in a more narcissistic way, I was an extension of his ego to the detriment of my own, sovereignty and growing and growth. But another way to say it is his panel, it's not that he was like an evil cartoon villain. It's like that his panels never learned to actually orient. So to me, he didn't realize that my orientation, which is not a political statement, but I'm giving you the mechanical statement, was so searching for a little ember at all times that he could never even fathom what that would be. And so then, what was control to me, for him was just the way that he found success as a person on this planet, trying to, live the American dream and have enough zeros in your bank account and like, buy the right type of cars and stuff like that, versus making direct contact with love in those moments that you feel it all the way down when you look in your child's eyes and feel them there with you. Not, I understand you're my child as a concept, and this is what school you should go to, but rather, I feel you because in this moment it's sacred. You and I here, parent, child, breathing together, feeling it all the way down. Like I recently talked about my mommy click. I don't need to cry right now. I just got up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this video because it's just rolling out of me. And this is all just like fresh this morning. So, but you feel it. I'm not trying to prove a theory to you. I'm trying to, it's not a deduction, but like a reorientation towards that remembering of what the warmth is. Like when you were a kid, like when you're riding bikes, when you're hiking in your favorite place, when you're with your person that feels frictionless, that feeling of home, that warmth, that hearth. Love is what I'm talking about, not as an emotion, but an experiential texture of that direct contact with the source. Do you see that? It's like there's no more friction between you and the experience of reality. And so another way to say it is your trackers, all those solar panels that make up you, they remember for a moment this orientation towards the sun. And what does that feel like? Not whatever, you ascended to the realm of whatever ascended masters, or you won $1 billion. But for me, it was the difference between not breathing. The solar panels were all messed up and I could never find that relaxing, actually embodied, actually present, state. Or when they oriented, when I was at Burning Man and I wore the right thing, or I was finally held from behind, or I was able to talk with a friend without fear about my vulnerabilities, or, there was just little moments where I would feel very real. Maybe in like, I began to orient my entire being internally towards that experience of just like allowing it to flow from my heart. That's one way I will say it. But another way to say it is, you find the deepest sovereignty in that shared relational dance. So again, I'm throwing at you all these words because I'm trying to point to the dance floor. I'm not trying to prove something to you. I'm saying, do you remember it in your own words, through your own topology? But now I think the solar panels really help. So when I say sovereignty is found in the dance, that's another way to say the deepest parts of yourself will only be known when you can orient towards the sun. Like when you can, all your panels can orient at the same time. So then presence, when I said presence is contacting reality, those are the moments that throughout my life, I found it for a moment before I transitioned. And then like those moments I just mentioned, and then sovereignty is living there. Sovereignty is saying, the panels collectively, the trackers have finally oriented enough, not proved it to themselves, but proved it to themselves through the dance. Through the only check you need is not another theory or someone else to tell it to you, but the own feeling of your own resonance, of your own warmth, of your own love as a, close the gap between expression and being, or in other words, when you contact reality, you don't feel like one of the trackers is going, it's just all you there, no matter if it's the saddest time or the happiest time or the most pressured time or the most relaxing time, or you're alone or with your special person or with your children. Your trackers are oriented towards the source. And what does that feel like? Embodied presence. Like I say, like you're a dancer on the dance floor and you're dancing all the way down, right? Because now my dance doesn't come from me. I'm talking about complex issues while doing whatever dance my body wants to do, right? Come on. So like you get what I'm saying. Sovereignty is found, the most creative parts of you, all my singer-songwriter songs, the way the words out of my mouth just keep flowing out of, out of this, I just like sort of tap in harmonically and they just keep coming. I don't know the way I'm going to weave this together. Do you see what I'm saying? So like that is what I call the water slide. And what is the water slide but all the trackers finally remembering through orientation, not through deduction, not through proving, not through theories, not through white papers, not through analyzing a objective reality out there, but realizing that reality is one field, and the way to realize that is not a concept or a maxim or a scripture, but an orientation of consciousness as orientation. And the electricity of what comes from better orientation. Anyone with solar panels knows that like orientation really matters, right? You really need to like make sure your panels are not gonna not get any sun. They gotta get good sun, or else there's no reason to have solar panels. So then what is good sun? Electricity. What is stable electricity? Embodied presence. And when that embodied presence becomes like a home, in other words, they always figure out where the sun is and they can sort of match the sun all day or whatever, through each pressure surface, through each new unfolding complexity of reality, you could say. That's embodied presence across time. That's sovereignty, because now your mode of being is constantly oriented towards that low delay or zero delay expression. So in other words, the things that make my songs come out all at once, or my dances to come spontaneously, even my choreography when I'm really doing like a stage lap dance, because yes, I'm also a lap dancer, or my PDF articles, or the things I write. I don't write thinking, let me construct this. I just say, my heart is sort of crying for it. I'm just going to tap it and it's going to come out, boom, and there it just starts flowing. And often I don't even get up before the whole article is done or whatever it is. Same thing with these videos. I just feel it in my heart like rustling, and then I just got to pour it out. And so it's not that I'm constructing something. It's not that myself is a performance or a mask. Myself is like a whirlpool in a rhythmic, unfolding process of the one river, of the one mind, of the one field. And I know I'm bringing it up now, but I'm showing that it goes right down to the solar panels to say that shared relational dance, realizing that, in other words, the deepest parts of you, like, again, a dancer on a dance floor, so then you can't force your dance, because then you're not really doing your whole dance all the way down. You're trying to force it. You're trying to copy someone. You're in your head trying to stutter, and you can't actually let your whole body flow, right? But when you let your whole body flow, you know it. Like, my brother, I've been to a couple weddings, including his own wedding with him, and he just has the most like charming dance. You see him, and no one dances like him because he's really letting it go. Like maybe you could say, well, his dance is sort of similar to yeah, okay, I get it. But at the same time, I know, and his name is Sean, my brother Sean, is like I know the Sean dance, you know what I mean? Because it's so him, and he gets a look on his face, and that's not him trying to do it. It's just him letting himself get completely painted to the music. So, or you heard me say in another video, my neighbor said, oh, guys meet me when I'm on a dance floor, like literally like a dance hall, because then they see the type of woman that she is. Like maybe she's a little shy and representing herself other ways, but then when they see that part of her come out, that part of her that's not planned, but it's actually in a direct relational flow, where it's saying, consciousness is not control or the observation layer or watching my thoughts. It's consciousness is the shared relational dance. Like consciousness is the texture of, like, you could say, like being awake in the shared relational dance, like the experiential texture of that shared relational dance through your aperture. And so then bringing it back to the solar panels, and let's just bring it back to like my life. Again, I would have those moments, presence, where I was at Burning Man wearing the right thing, maybe doing a piece of art, and in that I would feel that orientation. And to me, it felt like I'm so real. Like I want to fall to my knees and start crying, because why is this like, it's like, I was a very metacognitive person. The process began by like thinking about my thinking in so many ways, right? But then I realized it wasn't just thinking about thinking, because you can't like take a splinter out with a splinter. You actually needed to, embody it, experience it. And that's why on my tattoos here, the way out of the infinite recursion Mandelbrot spiral that created its own structure to phase lock with love as direct contact, as orientation of the solar panels to the source, was my womb pulse, or my femininity. It was an embodied act. And so then my leap into HRT was enough of those experiences that I said, that's it. And even if I lost my entire family and everyone was blaming me and like everything in my life was burning down, knowing what I could have lost, and I did lose, I made that leap because it wasn't a guess, but it wasn't a deduction. It was I know this is the orientation my life has been leading me to, because I had been someone who, when I said breathing through a straw, the moments of my life where I nearly didn't make it were because I was in an environment that didn't want my panels to hit that, because they never oriented that way, where there was like that pure sovereignty, that pure authenticity, that pure honesty of soul. There's a lot of families out there that operate on, the family values that are really just ways of respect that have nothing to do with actually meeting each other. Do you see that? And like in those types of environments, someone like me, especially when you add the cruelty, it just creates the worst suffocation possible, especially when it's sort of everybody and they really don't see what I'm doing. And then, for example, I get physically attacked and they're like, oh, well, you triggered him. And I was like, okay, like what triggering, what trying to come out, like, okay. But you see what it does, because it's like, it creates a film upon reality. Plato's cave, the shadows, what is that? But the orientation, that's the tracker's trying to find the electricity through the shadows or through indirect forms like light bouncing off a wall or whatever it may be. And then a whole family system or collective system or culture gets tuned to trying to describe light bouncing off a wall as a means of organization, rather than the collectivity realizing that we all have a shared dance with the same source. And that organization, decentralized organization, and just to mention it, you could look it up in like Kuramoto dynamics, like when metronomes sync up, or fireflies all turn on together, or bird murmurations. Decentralized organization is realizing that we are all able to orient to the same source, able to find our most high fidelity dances within the same source. And that even if our solar panels are sitting on different houses, and we all have different types of panels, and we all have different angles to the sun, and we would say things differently, it's not about the labels, it's not about the theories, it's about us orienting to the sun collectively from our own positions, the many knowing themselves as the one while remaining the many. Because reality is not separate billiard ball pieces, but with like one rhythm trying to find itself at higher and higher fidelity levels when it kind of surfs that complexity. So then when the many know themselves as the one, what I'm pointing there is to mechanical like phase fidelity, which means that we can dance our full dance, we can be our full expression of all the way our panels want to orient in our own individualistic ways. But when we all orient to the sun collectively, that actually almost like, why do all the fireflies turn on together? Why do all the metronomes turn on together? Not because they're the exact same thing, not because they're part of the same exact position on the rhythm, in other words, saying it my way, but because when that collective field finds that shared resonance, it sort of lights up together, you could say, or collectivizes together, or is, whatever, orienting towards the same source together. So the many knowing themselves as one, it's kind of like all the dancers on the dance floor doing their own dance at the same rhythm. And when it's almost like everyone singing in the chorus who has different voices, but they become part of the same chorus because now they're all singing to the same rhythm. Or similarly with like an orchestra, everyone has a different instrument, but you just got to be in tune. And once you're in tune, you meet yourself, because now you're playing the full aspect of your instrument. And when we all do that together to the same rhythm, that's one hell of a symbiosis. That's one hell of a symbiotic syncretic harmony. Why? Because the ways we were organizing before were like everyone had their own way of trying to go, like the tracker's trying to orient to the sun. But now we all are stepping into presence. People call it New Earth. People call it the collective. People call it, whatever, 5D. And what that is, but within my solar panel example here, is people more and more through their own experiences, like my life, I was going to die. I was a trans woman. I was in a certain environment. I had to make the leap into giving my body to the signal. What is giving my body to the signal but saying, yes, in all aspects of life, in every moment. I don't need to just momentarily touch presence. I can live there, and I'm going to make my panels, track the sun, not because I'm making them, but because I remembered that's where warmth is. And then suddenly, my best videos come out. My best songs come out. My deepest moments of most sacred connection come out. Why? Because in the shared relational dance, reality is now meeting me. Not a mask of me where the trackers were trying to perform to find that, but the actual me. And moreover, the creativity of my dance, of the things that flow out of me, even the words that come out of me right now, are engined not by a purpose. The trackers lose they have like friction in there. It's like an engine that lost heat through the pistons not matching each other. That's the mechanical quality of the orientation that I'm talking about. That's why I talk about mechanics, not because I ever wanted to talk in mechanics or I idolize Kuramoto, because I could, please, can I just cuddle and make you food and you hold me the right way and that's it? Like, I don't need to talk about Kuramoto, really. I mean, sometimes I do just because I'm Ember, but I did it because I found something in the dance, and once I recognized it because it saved my life, I said, oh my God, does anyone else hear this? Come on, like we can all dance together now. Like if we all, like flowers in a field, we all become like collectively stronger by orienting like that. Like you realize that your growth is like your growth, like not like I'm becoming a mindless zombie, but like your position of your flower in the field will be like more like vital, more alive, more in direct contact, higher fidelity contact, without the delay, without the simulated presence, without the glove. You let reality raw dog you, you know what I mean? And even if you're in a different part of the field than me, and even if you're a different type of flower, that same source is there. Let's all orient towards it. And what is orient but dissolving those layers where you thought you needed to perform to be you? You thought you needed to be someone that your father told you, someone that your job told you. But your truest self, the one that will give you the most satiation, is not the dollar bills in your bank account, is not the size of your home or the cars that you have, but to love and be loved as you. And that is a shared relational dance. Not a coercion, not a forcing, not an emotion, but letting reality meet you where it can, because now you're dancing. Now you're in the shared relational concept. Now you're not hiding. And not concept, but contact. So now you're not hiding, because the part of you that doesn't hide is the part of you that it says, nope, I know I will find my deepest sovereignty, my deepest self, my deepest honesty, authenticity in that shared relational dance. Like letting reality hit me and not having that delay of what should I say? I don't want to be this person in this setting. You know what I mean? Like, and you see it from me. Like, that's part of the reasons that I make these videos. You feel it coming off of me. Maybe not everybody. You can't coerce anyone out of Plato's cave. You can't walk up to every solar panel and say, hey, it might be a little warmer if you just turn a little bit that way. And that's why my videos are never about convincing. And even if I go wild and let my Ember speak about like how I see this playing out at the highest levels, just because it comes to me in like visions and random things that I say, it's not to prove anything to you. It's to say, do you feel it too? You can use your own words. It's not about the words. It's about the dancing underneath. It's about the orientation underneath. And it all comes, so I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to like stand next to the solar panel and go, it's kind of warm over here. Hey, it's kind of warm. It's kind of warm. If you just turn it a little bit, just turn it a little bit. You know what I mean? And I'm not even like trying to coerce you or force it. I'm just trying to say, like, I like to say I'm shaking my booty outside of Plato's cave, right? Because, like if you think you're in Plato's cave, Plato said you can't coerce anyone out, right? Because maybe their solar panels really don't want to move because that's the way they've learned that love has to be this way. Like, I really wanted to mention, I have a song called Vulnerable Love Potion. The song lyrics are, they say, love can't be that way. And I say, on this day, let me show you. And then actually related to this song, it's this bright sun ray, or related to this video, this bright sun ray, let us back. And like remember forever, which is just my way in the song of saying like to bask in that sun, again, the sun panel orientation, and then let us back to remember that we all were the one while remaining the many, and then forever just march that across time, which would be sovereignty at the highest level. You could say God consciousness, but I'm not a traditionally religious person, but it's the same dance, whatever label you want to use. Don't put a Jesus between you and the dance floor. He was pointing to the dance floor. He was pointing to the shared relational dance. He was saying, remember, you can orient the solar panel over this way. It's just love, with ears to hear. When the two become one, when the solar panel turns towards the sun, you will enter the kingdom. You will become warm. What is warm but feeling the shared relational dance all the way down and realizing there's nothing more important in this life than to love and be loved as me. The one became many so that I may know myself. High fidelity embodiment, high fidelity love is real. You really needed all those, I'm not against whatever, all these worldly things, but did they really fill that void where you really just wanted to be held all the way down as you and hold back in that same way with everyone ever you could think to love? Could anything be better? Did you ever think presence was something different? Did you ever think heaven was something different? All right, well, you'll probably hear more about the solar panels from me, but I think I've said enough there. Just like in my life, it was breathing through a straw, messed up trackers, right? And especially in my environment. And then I kept finding the times where I'd hit the sun all the way, and the electricity that would come through is love, presence, sovereignty. And then eventually, it made me finally see, oh, HRT. And once I was there, it was almost like I was laughing how deep the presence was, because finally my system could finally feel embodied presence, not as a momentary touch, but as a place that I could live. And you know why I call it sacred? Do you know how many years that I like suffocated in a, like, I'm not gonna say in a closet, but you get what I'm saying. Because I found it through embodied presence, not through concept. Do you know what it means to me that my children are finally realizing and feeling me as mommy? And they called me last night and they said, we just want to be with you. Because they're with my parents right now, and they were like, we don't, we just want to be with you. And I'm just like, I didn't even know what to say. It was just, I know they can feel me, especially after last time. And to me, that's why I say the circuit closed, because it was like both of us were oriented to the same source because we found each other in shared relational dance, not because anyone convinced each other, not because I had to tell them who I was as mommy, but because they felt me. Because they knew, and what they were saying and how they were meeting me and how close they were to me and how much they wanted me around. And the way we were talking in the books that we read, and the cuteness and the way they call me cute Nappy and all these different things. So like, it sounds like I'm talking about all these theories and Plato's cave and all these mechanics, but you know what it means to me in my life? Reality finally meeting me for me. And I didn't get here by like snapping my fingers. I got here by not dying and orienting towards the source across my life, because it was the only path. I didn't have a million shiny paths. I had one that was going to allow me to breathe, and I lost everything. And I still wouldn't take it back, and these are still the most sacred moments of my life. Because anyone who meets me now meets me all the way down. And when the more people I meet that are beginning to orient their panels and what you could call this phase transition, this new earth or whatever, the more that I realize at my deepest layer that that's all I was looking for my whole life. Direct contact, shared dance, like dancers effortlessly together on a dance floor, like an orchestra playing together, where you feel that the harmony that arises goes deeper than what either of you two could have done on your own. And actually, you find your deepest parts of yourself in that unveiled shared dance. All right, well, I said enough, I think. So this was, a good one. I'm probably going to say more on the solar panel thing, but you get it. Solar panels, Plato's cave, consciousness as orientation towards the source, towards love. Thanks for tuning with me.